Hey guys, it's Kevin again. So, if you know, there's a small show coming out in a couple days, maybe literally today. I don't know when this video is going to be up. Could be today, could be, tomorrow, as in Wednesday when I'm filming this on a Tuesday. But regardless, there's a show coming out. Might be called Big Brother, I don't know. But, yeah, and because of that, I probably should go ahead and, I'm excited to get to talk about it on this channel and review it weekly. And, oh, wait, there's something I think I need to address first. So if you guys remember, for the past, 2 years or whatever, 3 years, all reality TV show stuff has not really been a thing from myself on this channel. It's been mostly on a different channel, this podcast of sorts, and if you've noticed, I haven't really posted anything or uploaded anything, on that channel since February, maybe towards the end of February, and I just wanted to go ahead and say that, Conversation with Kelly, no more. I think it's pretty easy to see that at this point. Allie and I did break up back in February, and so that's why that hasn't continued. If you're wondering why there hasn't been any activity on that channel whatsoever, that is why. So we got to pivot at this point. And, I was trying to figure out the best way to really go about this, considering that you're probably used to seeing stuff for reality TV shows on that channel and not on here. So I just thought the best possible way to kind of get back into the swing of things and get back to, get you guys used to seeing things, get you guys back to seeing things on this channel again and not that channel when it comes to reality TV, is to essentially do a catch-up video of the reality shows that I have watched since then. Also because from this point forward, I do want to start talking about, reality TV on this channel more. I'm going to be doing weekly reviews for Big Brother 26 when that comes. I'm planning to do weekly reviews for Claim to Fame as well, because that's one of my favorites on TV right now, and I just always get excited when that show comes out, so I plan to do weekly reviews for both of those shows, which, if I'll just say right off the bat, I don't watch anything that is non-competitive. I only watch competitive stuff because I don't have anything to talk about with the non-competitive stuff. It doesn't interest me. I don't like watching stuff like that. Competitive stuff, however, that stuff I really enjoy watching. There were a couple shows that I really wanted to discuss in this video, but I didn't get round to. For example, Big Brother Canada, I was gonna try to finish the, now final season of that, but I didn't get to finish it. I only got to I think I'm on week 4, and so when I'm done with that, that'll be, I'll get around to that eventually. The Mole is another one that I was really excited to talk about and just didn't get round to it because of the fact that there's 2 seasons, and I haven't finished one, and I haven't started the other, so I have to do that. Same with The Circle. I haven't watched the last 2 seasons of that, and I really want to get back into covering that show because I really enjoy that show quite a bit. And then the other one, which I was literally planning to do in this video, I had it on the list, and I just wasn't able to finish the season in time, is The GOAT, show with Devon from Big Brother 17, 18, and 22, respectively. Was really excited to watch that one. I've seen the first 4 episodes. I need to watch the rest of it, so those will be discussed in essentially a part 2 of this video because I wasn't able to get around to those, but we're gonna cover 3 shows in here, 3 of which are the shows that I believe were the last 3 podcasts we did anyway, so it's kind of fitting that these are the 3 that we're talking about. We're just gonna go ahead and get right into it. I will say right off the bat, this is not going to be the most in-depth video when it comes to the seasons I'm discussing here. It's more so just going to be my brief thoughts, and by brief I mean it'll probably end up being 10 to 12 minutes because that's what ended up happening with the other catch-up video that I did. But regardless, I feel like I've gone on long enough. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. All right, so the first show we're talking about is one that I did cover pretty heavily on the podcast and things like that, but we didn't talk about the end of the season, so I'm going to talk about it right now, the end of the Traitors Season 2. I will catch you guys up, just to get you back up to speed if you didn't, watch what I said on, the other channel and things like that. I really love this season a lot. I thought the mix of people who have played, competitive reality shows versus the people who are just in non-competitive reality shows, I thought worked out really well. I liked seeing the blend of all these different personalities. I thought that the choices they made for the Traitors honestly were kind of perfect. I thought that this was just such a fun season. There were so many entertaining moments throughout. Phaedra was just such a instantly iconic character that you just really enjoyed watching week to week, whether it was just seeing her have to constantly deal with the terrible decisions that the other Traitors were making, or her Constance, just how vocal she was about everything, I thought was just really fun to watch week to week. And so we got to the last 2 episodes here, and I will say, I don't think these last 2 episodes were as strong as the rest of the season. I think that they definitely did pitter out a bit after Parvati ended up leaving. I think that, after Phaedra recruited Kate and things like that, that episode was really great. I liked the, I liked the brawl between, Peter and Phaedra. I thought that was really exciting to watch, but everything after that, it just felt a little less interesting. It felt very obvious that Phaedra was going to go in this episode. Pretty much everyone was onto her at this point. I think the thing is that this entire season, we've seen a Phaedra that every time she is called out, she always finds a way to get herself out of it. She is so incredibly articulate. She's finds a way to, make everything that she's saying seem like the only truth. The way that she's saying it, she makes it seem like you are insulting her when you are coming after her. And I think that she has done such a great job of putting people in their place. So to see her essentially just accept her fate here and not really have it in her to fight anymore was disappointing to see. I understand she's really tired. She's been called out constantly at every single round table. She just didn't have it in her anymore. I get that, but it just was very underwhelming, and especially considering how much I've loved her and really just kind of wanted to see her win this entire thing. It was just kind of disheartening to see her just kind of give up here. So yeah, I thought that was a little bit disappointing, but I was still holding out hopes that we'd have a really good finale, and I do think we did. That said, the people that were left were not people I was overly invested in. I've really loved CT this season. I thought he was a really fun character. I like how he has kind of been playing the middle, but has never tried to cut a deal with the Traitors. He's made it very clear that, he's faithful through and through, but he is willing to get his hands dirty when possible. And also have just been impressed by how much he was able to bounce back from early on when people were calling him out as a traitor. I thought that was really impressive. So I really liked him. Sandra, aside from Phaedra, has been the person I've been the most impressed by. I think she has just played such a phenomenal faithful game through and through, doing a great job of not really caring about who's a traitor and who's not, really just focusing on who she needs out of the way in order to get closer to winning, really just playing this very individualistic game and doing a really great job with that, having that anybody but me mentality that she's so known for having. I think that she's just done such a great job, so I was really hoping that she would win it. But then MJ, I really have not been that invested in. Kate, I've always enjoyed watching, but I will say, probably the worst traitor aside from, I think Dan is still probably a worse traitor, but Kate is just such a bad traitor here. Did such a terrible job, I think, of trying to keep things under wraps. I thought that she was going to be the kind of traitor that was just really cutthroat and really calling the shots, but again, she felt a lot more reserved, and it seemed like she was honestly kind of scared of being put into that role, that she didn't really know what she was getting herself into, and it just kind of seems like her being outed as the other traitor was just kind of inevitable at that point. So that round wasn't particularly interesting, but what was interesting was everybody suddenly turning on Sandra. That's something I was, so I wasn't really thinking she was going to win this. And then Trishelle, if you guys have seen the podcast, not really a fan of her. Don't really like the way she came at Peppermint. Don't really like the way she's been playing a lot of this game. A lot of the comments that she's made, I've really not been a fan of. I don't think, I think that there's definitely things that to like about her game. There's definitely things that she has done well, but there's just as many things that she hasn't. And so I haven't really been that invested in her overall. But that being said, I still thought this was a really fun finale. There were a lot of things to really enjoy here. Going to the first round table where Sandra's called out, the way that she defended herself, I thought was just so great. And I do believe that if MJ had a little bit more sense in her, she would have been able to detect that she was a faithful and that Kate was very much the traitor here. But because Trishelle and CT were so in lockstep of each other pretty much this entire finale, ultimately Sandra does end up going here. But again, just a really strong run from her. Was really happy with how she ended up playing this game. But again, I mean, kind of what we expected, because it was kind of one of those things where it's like, well, if it's not Phaedra, then it's going to be Sandra. And, you had Shereé being murdered and things like that. Also, I forgot to say John being murdered wasn't too surprising the way that went down. I thought that he was probably going to end up lasting, but I guess when you have someone like calling you out in the way that he did, it made sense for him to just be murdered at that point. And I don't think Phaedra was never going to murder Shereé, so it kind of makes sense that it turned out that way. So, Sandra going there did kind of sucked, but the final four is really when things got exciting, when we got to the Fire of Truth here, where essentially, Kate does end up going. Not too surprising there, the way that turned out. Like I said, I don't really think she was the greatest traitor, and I think she just kind of didn't really understand what she was getting herself into. I think that the pressure was just too much for her, and I think she even admitted as such in, the finale and the, reunion and things like that, which I'll talk about. But, I wasn't too surprised by that. What really is surprising is the final three, because you have MJ here, who is so convinced that the three of them are fine. They're all just going to split the money. They're all going to share it together. Has no doubt in her mind that's what's going to happen. And then CT and Trishelle come out, wanting the game to continue. And this is when things really get exciting. You get to the final vote here. It is a complete draw where Trishelle ends up voting for CT. The look on his face when that happened, I thought was just incredible. Had no idea how that was all going to go down. And then they get to the revote where MJ does end up going, and yeah, I mean, she's pretty bitter, and I think justifiably. I think she was so convinced the three of them trusted each other that she just didn't think that there was any scenario in which they wouldn't end up splitting the money. But I think she forgot that CT and Trishelle are massive gamers, and they're going to back each other in that way, and they're going to make sure that they have the best possible path to the finale. And when she ended up going, it was pretty obvious Trishelle and CT are the winners here. And I do think definitely both played really good games. As much as I don't like Trishelle, I can't necessarily fault her for winning the game. I think that there was a lot of things that she did do really well. She put herself in this position where people just kind of trusted her. She was never really seen as a traitor or anything. But CT's game is the one that I'm more impressed by, since he was seen as a traitor early on and was able to, curry favor with so many people within the house that they never really suspected that he was one, and they kind of just trusted him towards the end. Everyone was looking for, for him to vote for them and things like that. I thought that was just really great to see. So I do think it is a very good win. It's a really good, I like the narrative of these two people coming into the house, not really trusting each other, never really being able to, work together, having all this baggage from previous games, and then finally being able to put that aside in this game and work together and never really doubt each other. Even when they did doubt each other, they always came back around to each other. I do think that's a really good narrative to latch onto. Again, I'm just not really a fan of Trishelle, so it's kind of hard to put that aside. But I do enjoy that. I do think this is a pretty solid outcome overall. I definitely do like the way this all turned out. So I do think the finale was more exciting than I expected. What wasn't quite as exciting though was the reunion, which I honestly found to be kind of a bore, if I'm being honest. I mean, there were some good moments. I liked what Peppermint said when she talked about, how, all the things about her wanting to represent trans people, and her talking about, a lot of just the a lot of what she faced within the game, and the reaction that she had with that and things like that. I thought that was a really impactful moment. I thought all of that was really great to see. I hope that she's brought back at some point, because I really do feel like she had the rawest steal out of everybody this season, and I really just love to see her come back and be able to have that to have that redemption of sorts. I think that would be really great to see. So I thought that was a really good moment. I like the small moment we got between Dan and Phaedra, where you can see that he is not regretting what he did with Phaedra, with calling her out, and you can see that she is still not really happy about it. But it does seem like since then they've made amends. I've seen pictures of them hanging out together, so I think it was one of those things where, like, she's harboring a lot of anger towards him, and I don't necessarily blame her, because yes, he definitely, I think especially knowing that he was coming after her not even before that, I think that's what really got to her. It's not so much the fact that he just called her out during that round table. It's that even before that, he was plotting against her and made it seem like that wasn't the case. But I like that Dan has fully owned up to what he did wrong, but he doesn't regret what he did. And that it makes sense. That's a very Dan thing to do, always having someone in your back pocket, always having someone to go after in your back pocket. It's worked out for him up to this point. It just didn't work this time, so I don't really blame him for doing that. But I can understand why Phaedra was upset about that, and I like that they've been able to make amends there. There's a good moment between, like, MJ still being mad at Trishelle, but it doesn't really work when everyone else is telling her to just get over it because it's a game, so I didn't really think that was that effective, and ultimately I just didn't think this reunion was that exciting to watch. It seemed like most of these people have moved past it. They all have kind of accepted that it's just a game. They're willing to laugh it off, so it just wasn't that eventful. I think that the one we got last season, when you had half the cast that saw this as a game and then the other half that saw this as something a lot more personal, I think that was a lot more exciting to watch. I don't like the way that a lot of them came at Shereé. I don't enjoy that at all, but I don't think that this was exactly, really that exciting. And half of it also was literally clips from things that we had already seen, so I just feel like there was a way to do this and not have most of it be viewer questions, because that's what a majority of this really ended up being. I think there's another way to go about doing this reunion that is a lot more exciting to watch, and the one we got here, it just kind of felt like this could have just been like, if there was like a physical media release for the Traitors season 2, which there's not going to be, but if there was, this probably would have been like a special feature on there. This doesn't really feel like it needed to be its own episode. It didn't really feel like something that was all that exciting to watch. There was all this buildup prior to this reunion, and the way it just ended, I just didn't really enjoy watching it that much. But other than that, I still really did enjoy this season a lot. I think there was so much to really love about it. The first 6 episodes in particular are top tier reality television. So many amazing moments, things to go back to that I just really enjoyed watching. I think the second half was still exciting, but I think once things started to get a little bit more obvious, it did start to peter out a bit for me, especially after that one round where they didn't even end up banishing somebody. I think that was a lot less exciting to watch. But overall, I still really enjoyed this season a lot. I really love the concept of this game. I'm excited to see what season 3 brings to the table. We got Brittany Haynes coming in. We got Tony Vlachos. We got, we have Carolyn from Survivor 44. We have, Boston Rob, who I'll talk about in another show potentially in a little bit. I don't know. So I do think there's still a lot of things to look forward to overall, and I'm excited to see how it all ends up going down. I like the concept of the show a lot. I think this season really just showcased how great it can be when you have the right cast, which I think this season absolutely did. I just think maybe it dragged on a little bit more than it needed to, and I think that they really didn't need that extra week. I think that's something that they hopefully learn from in season 3. You don't need that extra week. I think when we don't have those roundtables and things like that, it's just not as exciting to watch. You had so many people that ended up surprising me, like Peter, for example. Never expect him to be this gamer that he turned into, but I thought that he was just definitely an infuriating player to watch, but I really enjoyed his passion and things like that, and I thought he kept things really exciting throughout. You had Phaedra, who was just such an amazing character. You had most of the Traitors kind of flaming out and playing terribly. I do think Parvati played good for the majority, but towards the end, I don't think things really worked out quite as well for her. But overall, I thought this was just such a fun season. I definitely really did enjoy it a lot. I was hoping that I could say that this is like so much better than season 1, but I think overall it is pretty much on the level, although it is a much better cast than season 1. So ultimately, I am going to give the Traitors season 2 an A-. All right, so the next one we're going to talk about is the rest of the season of Deal or No Deal Island. I did do the episode 1 podcast, whatever, but we're going to talk about the season, and this is a very interesting one to talk about because this is a show that, you know, if you don't know, I did not have very high hopes for at all. I thought just the concept of Deal or No Deal mixed with like Survivor, I just didn't think those two things work together at all, and I just really, this seemed like one of those shows where, like, if the strike wasn't a thing, probably wouldn't have even existed, probably wouldn't have even been an idea of sorts. And while I still don't necessarily know if this show needed to happen and if this was something that they had planned before then, it definitely surprised me. And there are a lot of things that do work really well. Right off the bat, I think the cast is very good here. They all are really just getting into it, and that's something I think that is really great to see. Of course, you have Boston Rob, who, I mean, look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've only seen 6 seasons of Survivor. They are the current ones, including potentially the one we might be discussing after this. I don't know. But, I've only seen 6 seasons. I have not seen Boston Rob play before, and I get the hype. I can absolutely see it here, but the thing I like from what I gather is that most of the time when he plays, he usually is someone that is, like, very dominant in the game, very much controlling things. So I like that this season he was way more of this underdog of sorts, and seeing him getting targeted constantly, thrown into Deal or No Deal, having all these people coming after him, and, you know, working this partnership with Aaron and things like that, trying to do what he can to get the target off of him, I thought was really great. But what I also liked is how he had these shields in front of him of Aaron, of Alyssa, 2 people that, you know, the other side was going for in that way. I thought it was just really interesting to see his game play out, but I think the most shocking part of it all is how uneventful it ends up being. Like, he has this crazy run where it seems like he's gonna win, and then he mishears a rule in a challenge and basically cheats, and then ends up going out because he had this penalty and ends up getting last place because of it. That's just absolutely wild to me. Like, the way the edit was propped up, it really did seem like he was going to win this entire game, and the fact that he didn't, I think, is crazy. So, you know, obviously, I think that's the main thing that, you know, a lot of people are going to talk about, but what I like about this season is that he doesn't overshadow everybody else. I think there's still a lot of great personalities here that I really just enjoyed watching. Aaron, I already touched upon, I thought was just so great here. I love seeing just how genuine he was with everybody and how strong of a social player was. Not very good strategically, but he's someone that you just really end up latching onto just because of, you know, just how human he ends up playing this entire game, which I think is also his biggest flaw. He doesn't have that cutthroat side to him at all, but I did really enjoy watching him. Alyssa, I thought was a really fun character. I really enjoyed her a lot. You know, Kim Matina, someone that I was really excited to see. I thought killed it in this game. Even though she wasn't there that long, I thought she still made quite an impression. You know, you had someone like, say, a Miranda, who literally, like, was pretty much purpled prior to her episode and then really just ended up going for the jugular at Alyssa, and I thought that was really fun to watch. Amy was someone I really found myself liking more. I wasn't sure if I was going to like her, but I do think the more the show went on, the more I did. And end up liking her overall. But I think we got to talk about the Night Owls as an alliance, because this is one of the most hypocritical alliances I think I've ever seen. They're all coming together essentially to take down Boston Rob, to take down Aaron, to take down Alyssa, because they feel like he's running the game and they feel like he's in power. But the entire time, it's like they have no validity of this whatsoever. There's really no evidence to back that up. He has 3 people on his side really the entire season, like generally had 2 other people on his side, and the fact that they saw him as this huge threat and they need to go for him immediately was pretty insane when they were the ones that had the numbers. Like, I just... The way that they were just so, like, righteous about the fact that, like, oh, we need to take these people down, they're the ones in power. It's like, I mean, you literally have 4 people that are doing just fine, have not gone into, have not gone into elimination, and when they did, the only time they did in Amy, it was literally a fake round. So, like, it was just absolutely insane to me, and so I really just did not find myself rooting for them at all, because I found them super hypocritical. But it also didn't help that the majority of them I just didn't find myself that invested in. Dawson, Nick, I didn't care about either of them. Neither of them really interested me. Nick, yeah, was kind of fun to watch, but Dawson, like, when he went out, I was like, wait, who's Dawson? Like, I feel like I didn't know him at all, and I feel like they were just really just under-edited the entire season. Stephanie, I really wanted to like, but I just had a really hard time because it never felt like she would own the fact that she was a villain. I think for me, like with Amy, I think the thing I liked about her is that she owned the fact that she was a villain. She owned the fact that, like, she was being very petty. Stephanie really didn't, and that kind of pissed me off. I would much prefer a player that, like, does a lot of messy shit and owns it than a player that does all this stuff and then still tries to make themselves look like the hero and tries to say that they were in the right for everything. I think even post-season she's still doing that, and that's really unfortunate to see. So yeah, I've never really been a fan of players that won't just own the fact that this is the game that I'm playing and instead try to make themselves think that they're this heroic presence, because Stephanie very much was not that. She was getting into fights with people. She was very forthright with going after Rob and Alyssa and things like that, and it just never really felt like she was able to recognize that, like, oh, I'm actually the one that is, controlling everything. And if she would have done that, I would have liked her a lot more. I think that she could have been somebody that, was kind of like stirring the pot and was someone we just really liked watching, because she just relished in the fact that she was doing all this crazy stuff, but she just never really did. And so I had a hard time really liking her as a result. Jordan, however, the winner, I thought was great. I liked her a lot in this season. I thought they did a good enough job with editing her. She was very much in the middle. She was with the Night Owls, or at least they thought that she was kind of with them, but all kind of like a subsidiary of that alliance. But she also was very good with, like, Rob and Aaron, and it didn't really seem like anybody was coming for her. So to see her win, I thought was honestly really satisfying to watch. She didn't do anything crazy, but I think she played a really great social game, and I think the way you play this game is by doing whatever you can to make sure you don't have to go into Deal or No Deal and just kind of, vibe with everybody, and that's what Jordan did so incredibly well. And so to see her win, I thought was just really exciting, and I really enjoyed that a lot. I thought, like I said, I think she was just a really great winner overall. When it comes to the actual format of the game, this is the thing I'm a little bit more 50-50 on. There were points where it was really exciting to watch, and I thought it added a lot to the game, whether it's seeing them pick these cases and feeling so confident about, like, Claudia's demise, for example. Really fun character as well. I was really sad to see her go so early. I was really enjoying her, and seeing her go early was definitely sad, was definitely unfortunate. But her demise, I thought, was one of the more exciting rounds, where it's like she's so confident that this is going to work out, and then it doesn't end up working out. So kind of seeing people that knew Deal or No Deal and putting themselves in this position where now they have to play it, and, maybe they aren't as up to, maybe they aren't as good of a player as they are a watcher. I thought that was interesting to see. But more often than not, it did kind of feel like a momentum killer, and I think that was the one thing that does bring this down. When the show becomes Deal or No Deal, it just kind of feels like we're dragging things out. Although there were 2 instances where it actually was really exciting. I thought the Miranda round was really great. The way Alyssa and Stephanie were going back and forth as well, I thought that was a really fun one. And then the finale, I actually liked what they ended up doing with having the most obvious banker in Howie Mandel. Literally could have told me there's a banker and I would have said Howie Mandel. Like, it wasn't surprising to me at all. I knew he was going to be involved in this in some way. Having him be the banker and like squaring off against Jordan and, you know, trying to distract her as much as he could, I just thought was a really fun idea. It added to the momentum. You had all of the eliminated players that were cheering on Jordan, which really was just a testament to how great her social game was. I thought it worked really well there. But other times this season, I just kind of found myself zoning out at those parts. I much more enjoyed the strategy and stuff like that. So I'm kind of 2 minds about it, where I think it works, but I think they need to add more elements to it to make it feel more exciting. Because when we get to Deal or No Deal, it does just kind of feel like, hey, we're just kind of letting this play out and there's not really much going on here. So that's really, I think, my only issue. Other than that, and there are also a couple players here that I just, like I said, didn't really feel like I knew all that well. Someone like a Miranda, someone like a Jamil. Who's Jamil? Honestly, like, when he ended up going, I was like, oh yeah, that guy. Like, I didn't really feel like I knew him at all. I didn't really feel like Dawson was somebody I invested in. Nick wasn't someone I felt invested in. Even, you know, I thought that someone like a Jordan, if it wasn't for what they started to do with her towards the, like, 5th or 6th episode of the season, I would have found her to also be very underrated, but I think they did a good enough job of getting us to latch onto her. I also did feel like sometimes they didn't do the greatest job in, you know, giving us enough with the strategy rounds. There were many points where it felt like we had like 10 minutes of strategy and then a challenge and then going right into Deal or No Deal, and so that makes things a little bit more inconsistent. But like I said, I think it works better than I really expected to. I do think a lot of that is due to the enthusiasm of the cast and how much they were into it. I really enjoyed Joe Magnello as a host. I thought he was a lot of fun. I liked the overall way things played out here. I don't really know what lasting impact this is going to have. I'm honestly kind of surprised it's going to get a season 2, but I think it's because a lot of people ended up watching, probably because of Boston Rob, honestly. I think the majority of people, that's why they ended up watching. So it was smart to have him on the first season. I'm just hoping that season 2 can add a little bit more spice to just make this a bit more exciting, because while I definitely was invested, it mainly was because of how much I enjoyed the players and not really because of the format. So overall, I did really enjoy this season. I think there definitely was a lot to like about it. While I do think there are some things that are a bit inconsistent, and I think there were some rounds that just weren't the most exciting, especially the 2 non-elimination rounds. Like, you just didn't really need them. I don't really know what they added, particularly the first one. I mean, we were gearing up for like something really exciting. Amy was about to do something crazy and probably get rid of Boston Rob or Aaron, and the fact that that didn't happen, I thought was insane. And I really wish that they would have had that play out. The second one, all right, that's fine. I don't really care about that one that much. But the first one was the one I really wanted to see go down, because I think that would have just been really exciting to watch. Even though I enjoyed Boston Rob and Aaron, I would have liked to see one of them kind of go on earlier than they did. But with that said, I still really did enjoy the season. So I'm going to give the first season of Deal or No Deal Island a B. Alright, so now we're going to talk about the last show that we are discussing here, which is probably the one you're most excited for me to talk about, and that, of course, is the most recent season of Survivor, of course, being Survivor 46, and this is a very interesting season, to say the least, because the last season, you know, 45, I mean, I thought was, like, legitimately perfect. I thought they did such a great job of really just giving us a sense of all the different dynamics, also having this really great cast who, because of the fact they had the 90-minute episodes, they were able to really just showcase everything they did in the game. Nobody felt purple. Nobody felt like we didn't get enough from them. And so I really just kind of had the feeling that because they were going to continue with the 90-minute episodes, that would be the case for this season. And yes and no. The weird thing about this season is that you have the pre-merge phase of the game, and it might be one of the most disappointing, abysmal pre-merge phases we've seen in a very long time. I mean, you have multiple people there that just do not have a clue on what they're doing in the game, that end up going on the, end up going very early. You have the same tribe consistently losing over and over again. You have, you have Jelinski, who, yes, is a fun first boot because he says several instead of 7, and he is just completely overplaying his hand. So you have that, but then you have Banu, who should have gone in an episode, but because somebody ends up having to be medevaced, ends up sticking around too long and just gets kind of tiring. Then you have Jess, who legitimately had no idea how the game was going, like had no idea what she was doing, did not want to strategize, did not want to really interact with people or anything like that. And so you kind of see that. So the pre-merge, like I said, it's just really weird. There's so much focus on the Yanu tribe, and because of that, all the other tribes kind of end up getting overshadowed, which is weird because 45 did such a good job of balancing all the different tribe dynamics, but this season, they're so obsessed with the tribe that keeps losing that all the other tribes fall to the wayside, and it just makes it a very disjointed first couple episodes because there were so many people that I just felt like I had such a hard time even remembering that they were there because they really don't pay much attention to them at all, and so that was a really big issue for me. And then finally, once Banu leaves and Yanu stops going to Tribal, it kind of turns into a new season. We start to focus a lot more on Siga and Nami, much more than we were before, and it starts to feel a lot more even-handed in that way. Specifically when it comes to Siga, I think is a lot of, there's some really interesting stuff going on there. I don't love that Jem ended up going when she did because I really liked her on the show, but it definitely was more exciting than what we were getting in those first 4 episodes. And not say there wasn't stuff I liked in those first 4 episodes. Like, Siga is one of the most dysfunctional tribes ever. They all hate each other. They all just are at each other's throats constantly. They're literally fighting over the immunity statue, and like passing it back and forth to each other. So, I mean, that was a really fun dynamic. But safe to say, the first couple episodes, I was very iffy on this season. I was like, I really don't know how this is going. I don't really know if this is going to work. I'm not really feeling this cast. Then we get to the merge, and this is where things get weird because while I think the pre-merge phase of this game was just really badly put together in terms of what they decided to show, there's a 4 to 5 episode stretch in the merge that is legitimately some of the most wild and chaotic stuff I have ever seen on Survivor. Whether it's multiple people playing idols and, having idols and not playing them, whether it's all these alliances being formed and then dismantled immediately, sometimes in the same episode, whether it's just some of the most inept players we have seen in this game, when it comes to like a Q, who such a fun character to watch, so unpredictable, but so bad at this game in so many different ways, yet ends up surviving so long because of the fact that he is seen as this complete and utter mess, being told that the vote is Tevin, and then scrambling to make sure that it isn't, throwing out names left and right, almost quitting the game, telling people about Tiffany's idol when she told him in confidence, and him quitting and then people not letting him leave, which was just absolutely insane the way that ended up playing out. And you have Venus, who, similar to Q, is kind of a terrible player, but also is so much fun to watch because she's trying so desperately to form something, but people keep icing her out the entire time, and that part is not her fault. Like, the way that Nami turned on her immediately, and she was probably going to end up getting voted out if they ever, and, they disliked her so much to the point where, like, if they ever went to tribal, she was most definitely going to be the one voted out. That obviously is not great, and I did feel bad for her on that front, but the thing with Venus is that anytime someone tried to establish something with her, she says like exactly the wrong thing to get them to distrust her, and just kind of ends up doing that the entire season. So very fun character to watch, but good at the game. I definitely would not say that, but that's like the majority of this cast, where they're like not very good at it, but yet they are keeping you on your toes the entire time, because you have no idea how this is actually going to play out. Are they actually going to be able to pull off this blind side? Are they going to be able to conduct this move? Is that something that's actually going to happen? Or is someone going to make the most suboptimal move ever and just completely fuck themselves over, which happens a lot this season. So many things that happen this season that like you generally just could not make up even if you tried. Liz, freaking out over the fact that she wasn't picked for Applebee's and like screaming at Q for not picking her because Applebee's reminds her of her kids and things like that, which is just such a wild scene. Even in the finale, I mean, there's that crazy moment with Liz during fire making where she basically tells them that she was gonna win the whole thing, and we found out post-season it's because she lied about being a billionaire and was playing it up the entire time and fooled them. And I mean, honestly, like, props to her, because I was the one that was sitting here the entire season saying like, Liz is a billionaire. I don't even understand why she's on this show. Like, she doesn't even really seem like she cares about winning. And if she was at that FTC and actually ends up saying all that, I legitimately think, yeah, she could have won. And that's crazy to think about, because Liz was not at all somebody that I saw as a winning contender. And I don't even think the show saw her as that either. Like, you can tell in the edit, they don't really take her all that seriously. But knowing that a lot of that was her, kind of propping it up, and a lot of it was her just kind of masking, what she actually, her true identity, I think that is just really cool, and that's exactly the way you end up winning a game like this. So, I mean, again, just from start to finish, so many just crazy moments throughout this entire season. And it is, again, terrible gameplay from so many people. I don't think there's barely anybody this season I could say is like legitimately good at the game. Like Maria, Charlie, and the winner of the season, who I'll talk about in a little bit, really end up coming up as like the only people that I think generally did play well. Everybody else, no, very much not. Playing way too much with their emotions and not enough with, from a strategic sense of things. But yet it is so much fun to watch because it's so unpredictable, and I generally had no idea what was going to happen. And then after a certain point, once we get to like episode 11, it starts to become a bit more predictable with how things are going to play out moving forward. And that's really when we get to the other thing with this season that is both a positive and a negative. This has easily one of the most obvious winner arcs, I think, of any season that I have seen. Now, keep in mind, I haven't seen many. I've only seen 6 of them, but of the ones I've seen, this is easily this is easily the most predictable season in terms of a winner. It is so obvious from the beginning that Kenzie is at least going to make it to the end. They focus so much on the fact that she had this great social game and she's bonding well with people, and she's helping others, just not just from a game perspective but just through a personal point of view. There's Ben, who's having panic attacks and things like that, and she's the one helping him through it. So it's so obvious throughout the entire game that she's going to make it to the end. But it's not really an issue for me because I liked Kenzie a lot this season. In fact, to be honest, she was my favorite this entire season. I just really enjoyed her positivity. I liked how in a sea of chaotic players, she was the one that was pretty level-headed. She didn't involve herself in too much of the drama, and yet nobody really wanted to go for her except for Banu, who is a crazy player in his own rights, here to play for $1 million hearts and not $1 million. So, that's pretty insane. I think that she was a really fun, and I think, helping people throughout many different circumstances throughout the show, forming some genuine bonds. I really did enjoy her on this season, so I really don't have any issue with her winning. It really is just once you get towards a certain point, it's fairly obvious that she's going to win. Like, there was no scenario where, like, a Ben was winning or, especially with her going up against someone like a Ben or a Liz. Like, it was fairly obvious that Kenzie was probably going to win this. Charlie really was her only competition, and the thing with Charlie is that I've seen a lot of people say that he should have won, and I just never got the sense that Charlie was going to win this game. I didn't think they focused on him enough in the first couple episodes. They really focus more on him being in this duo with Maria, but to be honest, I always saw it as like Maria controlling Charlie and not Charlie controlling Maria. Yes, I do think he makes that great move in getting Maria out and things like that, but Maria ultimately doesn't vote for him, so it doesn't really end up working out. I do think he played a really solid game strategically. It really just came down to the fact that, like, who was the one with more, with a bigger edit? Who was the one that they were showcasing more? Who was the one that they were making a point to emphasize, what she was doing with all of the players, when they were not gaming? Who was the one that was doing all that? It was very obvious who was going to win, and I think that's the other thing that does both hurt and help this season, because you have such a likable winner, but you also have such an obvious winner. So again, it's kind of a weird season to talk about because there are so many things that I like. There are just as many things I don't like. I also like the fact that there's barely any twists in this season. There's almost no advantages. There's no crazy twists out there. It is a fairly straightforward season. Once we get past like the typical, like, oh, you're going to go on a journey and things like that, and we do the, the not merge, and then we do the, we're going to split you into two tribes or whatever. Then we get to the merge. It's extremely straightforward from that point, and that's something I really enjoyed seeing. I liked how not complicated this season was. I think it made it a lot less frustrating, and because I think especially in the earlier days of this new era, they really were just trying to implement too much, and I think they've now realized what really does work. It's just, again, the 90 minutes I don't think really worked as much this time around. I think the merge definitely, but the pre-merge, it just really seemed like they didn't really know what to focus on. They didn't do a great job of balancing things out, and so I think that was definitely like an issue for me, and I think they could have done a better job with. There's also just some people that like I generally can't tell you anything about. Like, Tim is someone who goes so early in the merge that I just couldn't tell you a single thing about him. Same with like a Mariah, aside from the fact that she can't jump. I think that's something that they mentioned. And the thing is, like, even the 4 to 5 episodes we have here, they're still really great. I still really enjoy getting to see all these different dynamics play out, and also how much they end up crumbling for the majority of these players. But the thing that does hold it back and does not at all put it on the level of like 45, for example, is that we didn't really get to see a lot of these dynamics from their start. Like, for example, Charlie and Ben is apparently, a duo that I should have invested in. But aside from like the scene of them comparing, trying to name as many Metallica and Taylor Swift songs as possible and them kind of going head to head with that, we didn't see enough of their duo. Ben as a character especially, like, becomes so purpled in the merge phase. I did not at all think he was making the end, just because, like, we barely got anything from him. So I kept expecting him to leave. And that's not really just him. There's other people I can definitely say that for as well. And I think that's really what just brings this down, is that a lot of the dynamics that are important, some of them we see, but most of them are, if they're not from Yanu, we don't really see them play out. And I think that's the thing that really does hold this season back, is that even though, yes, I think the merge phase absolutely made up for, what the rest of the season was, it still felt like there was something missing. And I think that was the thing that was really missing, is, again, just that development. And that's something that 45 did so well, is establish these dynamics early on. So then once we got to the merge, it felt like, okay, we know where all this is coming from. We know how important this is. We know where this, we know why these people are working together. Like, we weren't confused. Here, I felt a little bit more on the ouch, just because I don't think they did a great job in the pre-merge of really taking advantage of that 90 minutes. Instead, focusing heavily on a tribe that just consistently kept losing. And as much as I did enjoy watching them, I wanted to see just as much emphasis put onto the other tribes, and they just didn't really do that this season. So it just wasn't nearly as well balanced as I was hoping it would be. Only other issue, I will say, has to be the reunion. I've talked about this before in the podcast, and I'll say it again here. I really just think the live reunion isn't working anymore. I understand that, Jeff doesn't want to do the whole let's do it live, let's have this audience and things like that. Let's wait until they've seen it at home. I understand that. But doing it right after the finale, it's just not beneficial for anybody, but especially seeing Charlie's reaction the entire time and him just disassociating pretty much for the entire 30 minutes. It's just not really fun to watch. It feels like they really just needed to give the players time to cool their heads about what was going on and, recognize what really ended up happening that got them to this point. I don't think they did a good I just don't think it's working. I think the questions that's being asked and things like that, you just need a lot of time to process that, because you just lost you didn't just lose the game, you just lost the chance on $1 million. It's a really big deal, and it really fucks with your head. And I feel like just to do it immediately after, it's just not really entertaining to watch, and it's not something that the cast really deserves at all. I think give them at least a couple days to process it, and then you can do the reunion. Doing it right after, it's just not really working anymore. So I really hope they end up changing that, especially knowing that Survivor 50 is coming up, and there's going to be all these there's going to be all these returning players. I'm hoping by then they recognize, we don't need to be doing this anymore. Let's move forward. This is this is like a do or die, or an hourglass, where it's that's in the early days of the new era. We can move past that and we can figure out what works, because that's the one thing that I will say is just really not working anymore. And I really do hope they end up making serious changes too, because I think it's just really, like I said, unfair to the majority of the cast that they have to sit through that. Even and the pre-merge people aren't even there, so that also has always been weird to me. It's if you talk about Jelinski, who gets mentioned a lot because of the several thing, or you have Banu or someone like a Gem, they're not there to vouch for anything that anyone is saying, so it just feels a little bit unfinished. It's just, I don't know, it's just really weirdly put together, and I don't really like the way they did that. But overall, I mean, it's still a season I really did enjoy. I think they had some great characters. Tiffany was another player I really liked. I enjoyed her bond with Kenzie. I liked their duo a lot. I thought that she had a legitimate chance of winning the game. I think if she, again, played her idol, she probably could have gone a lot farther. But we know what happened there. But nevertheless, she was still a really fun character, and I really enjoyed seeing her throughout this season. I think that there were just some incredibly entertaining moments that we will be talking about in Survivor for years to come. The fight with Q and Liz especially, I mean, that's going to go on in Survivor history for a very long time. I think many people will be talking about that. The hide and seek episode in particular is a huge highlight. I mean, just the way everything goes down in that episode, where it seemed like there was going to be this major blindside for there was going to be this blindside for Tevin, and then it switched to Venus, and then Q almost quits the game, and then everyone's like, yeah, no, you're not doing that, and they vote out Tevin anyway. I mean, my God, what an insane tribal that ended up being. And then the episode after that, where the vote ties onto Hunter and Q, and Hunter doesn't play his idol, which starts the trend of nobody playing their idol. Again, just absolutely insane the way so much of the season went down. It legitimately feels like a fever dream. Like, it's so hard to talk about this season and actually be like, oh yeah, that happened, because so much of it just seems so impractical, but that's why this season works as well as it does. I think Kenzie is going to be a winner that, like, is respected. I just think that, yes, maybe she didn't do a lot strategically. I think, if you're focusing on that, yes, maybe she'll be a little bit more at the bottom, but, Survivor is both a social and strategic game, and I think she killed it in the former, and I think she did a really great job overall, so I really do like the winner. I liked a lot of the different competitions they did. The one they did in episode 2 where they had to, like, work together to, like, put together that sign or whatever, I thought that was a really cool one. I want to see more stuff like that. You had some of the most interesting tribe dynamics I have seen in such a long time. Like I said, Siga is generally dysfunctional. Like, most of them just can't trust each other at all, and you're just waiting for them to vote each other out, and I thought that was such a fun thing to see. So many players that are just making the worst possible decisions the entire season and sabotaging their games, but yet it is so entertaining to watch. Again, I think what really just brings it down is the fact that editing-wise, and especially in the pre-merge, it just wasn't quite as well put together as I was hoping for, and so that's really the one thing that does hurt this season, but it doesn't really change the fact that at the end of the day, I still can say I really enjoyed it, despite the fact that it was kind of a weird one. I think at the end of the day, I can say I enjoyed watching 46. I enjoyed a lot of what ended up coming from it. There were so many memorable moments. There were so many just wild and unpredictable things that happened, and really just end up being like a very different season. Like, I would say right now, out of the seasons I've watched, this is by far the most Big Brother Survivor season I've ever seen. Like, genuine animosity between people. You have people postseason who are still getting into fights, which is insane, by the way. Like, I truly could never. Like, if I ever did one of these things, which I wouldn't, but if I ever did, I truly could never harbor so much resentment even months after the game has ended. That's just crazy to me, to see how that all ended up going down. You had so many, like I said, just crazy tribe dynamics. Overall, I think this was just a really entertaining season. I just wish that there were some things that were just done a little bit better. So after all my long-winded thoughts on this, I am ultimately going to give Survivor 46 a B. And with that, guys, we have finally made it to the end of this video. I don't know how long this is at this point, but it probably was longer than I was expecting it to be. But regardless, I hope you guys did enjoy this. Like I said, I wanted to find a way to just kind of welcome back talking about reality TV shows onto this channel, and I feel like this was the best way to go about it. Moving forward, I do plan to do weekly reviews for Big Brother 26 and Claim to Fame. Looking forward to doing both of those, and of course Survivor when it does come back. You can definitely look forward to weekly reviews for that. Traitors, whenever that comes back, I'll probably do weekly reviews as well. And then in terms of that, I'm gonna do a cast assessment for Big Brother 26 as well, so look forward to that, because I have a lot to discuss when it comes to that. But other than that, guys, so for this video, hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, comment down below, let me know what you guys thought of any of these shows at all. Would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.